about how to work on protecting the fisheries, protecting the fishing areas that you rely on. And this is a talk that I've given many times. At the beginning, I used a lot of scientific terms, and a lot of graphs and information, and then realized that, and this is the next slide, well, this is a Goliath grouper. And it's one species in the Caribbean that is overfished and is really endangered in many places. Florida has a really interesting story of success of protecting this fish. In Mexico, it's called cherna, mero cherna, and it's a fish that also have religious beliefs in some communities in the Caribbean. But let's go to the next slide, because on the title you see the fish bank idea, and let's think that this is your fishing area, and in Spanish it's called refugios pesqueros, or fishing refuge, something like that, refuges. And let's think that we agree that certain areas that your fishing cooperative have overfished, you want to replace that biomass, that amount of fish. So what we really try to do, and this is working very well in Mexico, is get this idea that it's like a savings account. It's like a live fish that you're putting on a bank. And of course, the most important and difficult part is to agree on lines in the water, in the ocean. What places will remain open to fishing and what places we agree upon closing. And this is related to the concept that Jennifer said, OEMC, other, did I say it right? Yeah. Other marine conservation measures. And because this is not an MPA, this is not a traditional MPA. Actually, we have been doing this inside marine protected areas to increase the amount of protection, but also to increase, and most importantly, the engagement of small-scale fishermen. So on the right, you will have the no-take zone or the fish bank, and on the left, you continue fishing. And the thing that happened over time, and this is really depending on the species, is that over time, the fish is more abundant inside the fish bank because you stop fishing, you stop killing or the mortality, the fishing mortality, the technical term, stops. So little by little, you get more abundance inside. Of course, this is not a physical barrier. I mean, fish can move in and out, lobsters or whatever animal that moves, not sessile. And and diversity. If you choose this place as well, there's an increase in diversity over time. But what is really interesting is that this spillover effect. I mean, fish move. Of course, competition for food, for mating increases inside the fish bank, and then you have the interest rate going out. So you go, instead of going to an ATM machine and get access to all your capital, you get the spillover effect biomass. So you continue fishing outside, you don't fish inside, and sorry, and the spillover, the most important part is eggs, larvae that are produced inside the fish bank and see the outside. So it's a concept that has been proved. I mean, there's data, scientific data that show that it works. And the most interesting part is that when fishermen gets this, they said, of course, we've done that. I mean, when we overfish a place, a fishing spot, we stop fishing there, for 2 or 3 years, and then we go back because he has recovered. So the whole idea here is to get it run for a longer period of time. And we have done this in many places, and one is in the Caribbean, and this collection of logos that many of you don't know what there are. But this is the ecosystem we have to work with through a collaboration platform, NGOs, the government, federal government, because fisheries management is a federal jurisdiction. We don't have state management in Mexico, state waters. Everything is managed by the federal government. Foundations, of course, fishing cooperatives, scientists. And this is a platform that we started about 10 years ago that is still working. It's for the Caribbean, for Quintana Roo State, and then recently they moved into Yucatan and then into Campeche, that is in the Gulf of Mexico. And so this is the last one. And so one idea that has worked really well and is created a lot of interest is the endorsement, the empowerment that this kind of tool gives to the fishing community. In some meetings that I've been at, somebody said, well, but doesn't make any sense because it's like putting the fox in charge of the hen house. It's really an important thing to say here that the people that are most interested in sustainability for the oceans, for fisheries, are fishers. They want to continue fishing for the next generation. So we need to change. This idea is still very permitted in many like scientific circles and government. We need to incorporate stakeholders in decision making. Their values about the way of living are very, very important. They are the ones who are monitoring these places for scientific purposes. Of course, not as detailed as the scientists, but they're really good of counting things underwater, identifying things. They self-enforce these areas because the government is doesn't have enough funding and not very interested, honestly, on the ocean. And so they're working really well. And we are promoting more and more networks, trying to incorporate them as part not as part, but working with the MPA network that we already have. And hopefully in the near future, we will have all the coastline of Mexico covered with these tools that also help for governance, for marine governance, that Mexico is very, very weak. So that's the story that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One thing I think I can pull out from that straight away is the amount of connection. What you were saying there with what Jennifer was saying. You know, you guys are doing this yourselves. You know, we don't have these lines drawn on maps or these official bits of paperwork. Exactly what Jennifer was saying in terms of, who's doing this, where we're doing it and stuff. But what I like from that too is you've gone, well, actually, when it is done, it works. So we've got that proof in the pudding in a way, which is fantastic. Next, we have Vance. Enjoy. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, buenos dias.
But not those slides.
Right. You want to go?
Unless, change your plan, ladies and gentlemen. We now have Oscar.
Okay. Nature's very dynamic. Anyway, thanks. Hello, everyone. Morning. Morning. So, what if I told you that there's an archipelago in the middle of the Mexican Pacific that has remained somehow pristine for over a century? My name is Oscar Guzón. I am here to talk to you about one of the most unique marine protected areas in Mexico, the Marias Islands, and how it has become, and we cannot find better words for it, an involuntary cetacean sanctuary. So, the Islas Marias,
So yeah, oh,
All right, there we go.
oh no.
Well, the Islas Marias are located in the Mexican Pacific in a very, very fortunate geographical location where several biogeographic regions meet, which gives its waters the perfect conditions to have very high cetacean diversity. As you can see, they're very close to the shore. There's my hometown, Mazatlan, right there, less than 100 miles, nautical miles. The closest port or land would be 70 nautical miles. And this unique group of islands are located in the mouth of the Sea of Cortez, which is one of the most biodiverse bodies of water in the world. It's also at the start of the Eastern Tropical Pacific, which is only the most productive area of ocean in the world. It is at the end of the temperate North Pacific, which is also extremely productive, and is right on the edge, literally less than 5 nautical miles from the Middle American Trench, which drops down to 12,000 feet. So because of these reasons, you would think, or you would imagine it's gonna have very high cetacean diversity, because you're gonna get warm water species, you're gonna get cold water species, you're gonna get deep water species, you're gonna get shallow water species, and you're gonna get species that, because of these conditions, they can find in these waters resident or semi-resident populations. Plus, you have the migratory species that most of them can find even in these waters, the breeding grounds like humpback whales. Some of them might just be passing through, actually. So, there we go. So, the archipelago is composed of 4 islands from north to south: Juanito, Isla Maria Madre, Isla Maria Magdalena, and Isla Maria Clofas. So what then has kept the Islas Marias in such a pristine way? And the reality is that there was a prison there. And this was not ordinary prison. We're talking about the largest penal colony in the Americas that was opened in 1905, so over a century ago. And so if you can imagine, the access to the islands was extremely limited. The incredible thing about this prison is that it allowed for a very unusual and relevant indirect protection of the islands. And the Marias, of course, is a natural protected area. In 2005, it was designated as a biosphere reserve. However, in relation to its long history, the biodiversity and the value of the natural resources of the islands was not well recognized until very recently. So the real protection came from the prison, and because there were strict regulations in place and no one was allowed to be within 20 nautical miles of the islands, and that include flying above it or navigating around it. So the area was actually completely off limits, with the military and the Mexican Navy running the place for over a century. So in 2019, the penal colony was shut down for good by President López Obrador within the first 4 months of its mandate. And on March 8th of 2019, the last 624 prisoners left the island during an operative that lasted like 1.5 days, more or less. So the new vision of the president was to convert this area into station for environmental education, scientific research, and sustainable tourism. And guess what? He did. Today, you can buy a very affordable ticket to jump into a brand new high-speed ferry and spend 2 days exploring Isla Maria Madre, all inclusive. You know? So what is the big deal then? You know? So of course we applaud the intention behind closing down this penal colony for good. But what is concerning is that without the restriction and vigilance imposed by the prison, this rich marine environment that has remained somehow pristine for such a long time, now might become impacted in ways that it haven't been impacted before. No? So particularly with all the attention of the tourism that's coming through today. No? So the fact is that the Mexican Navy is still running the show, which in my opinion, it's nothing but good news, because strict regulations are still in place, although they might be a little bit more relaxed now. No? So in terms of scientific research, in general, the access to the Marias Island was extremely difficult for many years. So the fact is that very, very limited information exists about cetaceans in the area. We don't know which species are there, what are they doing there. So, but things, fortunately, are starting to change. You know? After over a year of planning, my colleague, Dr. Nicola Ransom from Murdoch University and I, we got ourselves a magnificent opportunity to perform cetacean research in the area. So on the last days of April, we embarked on a unique exploration of the archipelago with the invaluable help of a film crew that we just met random, that were filming a documentary on the islands, and obviously the support of the Mexican Navy. You know? So for 3 full days, we circumnavigate the islands, covering a total of almost 200 nautical miles, and we were able to record 16 sightings of 8 species of cetaceans. The species that we found were those expected, as we did find tons of dolphins everywhere. An amazing pot of orcas, mom and baby humpback whales playing around in many places, even if it was the end of the season. And even some deep water species like a dwarf sperm whale. And so basically it was cetacean paradise out there. So overall, the results of this first expedition were spectacular. We did manage to obtain photo ID catalogs for several species that we found, particularly a very neat record of a pod of orcas, 5 orcas actually, that we managed to identify the whole pod. We took a biopsy sample for genetic studies. And so as you can see, what we're trying to do here is to obtain a baseline knowledge, basically collect data to find out what species are out there, you know, what species are present, and what is their distribution in temporal patterns. And we really need to do this right now before it starts to build more tourism, because the concern is that there are some areas which might be particularly important for extremely rare cetaceans. So next steps for us in this project right now is to continue to raise funds, obviously, for our research and conservation program, but to forest our relationship with the Mexican Navy so we can establish a collaboration between the Museo Nacional de la Ballena and the Secretaría de Marina. So we can engage in the systematic study of cetaceans in the area, but using their vessels as a platform of opportunity. And that includes the high-speed, super nice ferry. And to mount equipment to obtain real-time data on environmental conditions and cetacean sightings. So in exchange, we're offering to train their staff on cetacean biology and ecology, to develop an educational program for visitors, and to create a blueprint for sustainable whale watching activities in the area. All of these with just one and only one goal, which is to preserve this involuntary sanctuary for present and future generations. So that's my story, guys. I'll leave you with this beautiful postcard of our very brand new museum that will be open in Mazatlan, hopefully very soon. And I hope that you can visit us and see what we have for you there.